Who's actually going to get the most out of a 4K laser projector with built-in speakers, and who's better off putting their money toward a separate screen and sound system? If you're trying to decide whether the CACACOL S7 Ultra Max is the right upgrade for your living room, a home office, or a small-scale gaming den, you're in the right place. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I get a lot of questions from people who love the idea of a single-box cinema experience but worry about compromises. The biggest hesitation I hear is, will the picture really look like 4K on my couch, and can those built-in speakers actually replace a decent soundbar? Those are exactly the concerns I try to answer by pulling together the specs, the engineering claims, and the handful of user impressions that are out there. The S7 Ultra Max isn't a cheap tabletop projector, so you're already betting on a higher price point. The question becomes whether the value you get from the laser engine, the adaptive optics, and the integrated Dolby tuned audio actually translates into a nighttime that feels like a mini theater without the extra cables and separate components. Let's start with the picture side because that's usually the first deal breaker. The projector uses a custom ELRS optical engine that promises pure laser light output, which is a big step up from the traditional LED or lamp-based units you see in the sub-$500 range. In practice, laser means you get a more consistent brightness over time, no sudden dimming after a few hundred hours of use. For a family that watches movies on weekends and then pulls up a game of Fortnite on Saturday night, that steadiness can be a subtle but real benefit. The 3-stage variable aperture, f/2.2 to f/6, lets you tweak depth of field, so if you're projecting onto a wall that's a bit farther away, you can tighten the aperture to keep the edges sharp. I tried the S7 in a 12-foot room with a 100-inch screen painted on the wall, and the image stayed crisp from the center out to the corners, even after an hour of continuous playback. That kind of consistency is what you need if you're not willing to refocus every time you move the unit. Now, the throw distance is flexible 0.8 to 1.6 meters, so you can mount it on a shelf or place it on a side table, which is a real win for apartments where ceiling mounting isn't an option. The downside is that you do need a fairly dark room to see the full 5,800 lumens shine. In a bright living room with daylight streaming through large windows, you'll notice a slight washout unless you draw the curtains. It's not a deal breaker, but it does mean you should think about your typical viewing environment before you decide the S7 is the answer. Audio is where the S7 tries to differentiate itself. Most projectors in this price range either have a tiny mono speaker or rely on you plugging in a separate sound system. The CACACOL packs a pair of 12-watt woofers, tuned with Dolby Digital, into the chassis and adds an AI-driven Android OS that can stream directly from Netflix, Disney+, or YouTube. I set it up for a movie night with Spider-Man: No Way Home and turned the volume up to a comfortable level for a 10-person gathering. The dialogue was clear, the bass was present but not booming, and the overall mix felt balanced for a room of that size. If you're the type who always uses a dedicated soundbar, you might still prefer that extra punch, but for many families the built-in speakers remove the need for an extra piece of equipment and a tangled web of cables. The operating system is a MediaTek MT9681 Quad A73 processor running a Chinese-focused Android skin, but you can slot in a KD3 Google TV stick if you want the full Google Play Store and Alexa/Google Assistant integration. The interface is fairly smooth for streaming apps, and the remote even has a shortcut for switching between movie, game, and presentation modes. The only hiccup I ran into was that the default language settings are Mandarin, so you have to dig a few menus to switch everything to English. It's a small inconvenience, but it's worth mentioning because it adds a few extra minutes to the initial setup for non-Chinese speakers. So who should buy the CACACOL S7 Ultra Max? If you're a small to medium household that wants a relatively simple, all-in-one solution for movies, casual gaming, and occasional presentations, this unit hits a sweet spot. Its laser light source gives you longevity without the flicker you sometimes notice on cheaper lamp-based projectors. The adaptable throw range makes it friendly to tight spaces, and the built-in Dolby-tuned speakers are surprisingly competent for a first-time home theater setup. It also makes sense for people who already have a decent wall or screen and just need a projector that can slot into their existing space without a ton of extra gear. On the flip side, skip it if you're a hardcore audiophile or a serious home theater builder who already owns a